Singleton, Scoped, Transient. How do you use them with dependency injection in ASP.NET Core? In program.cs we call builder.services and we either use the add singleton, add scoped or add transient extension methods. To register a service we first specify the service type and then we specify the implementation type. To use it in a web API controller, we inject the service type into the constructor's parameter and then store a reference to it. So for this, we'll get the reference and we'll store it from the constructor's parameter. We can then use that reference to get properties, methods, and fields. So in the product singleton service, we have a property called UTC time. We can return that as part of this web API response. But what are the differences between add singleton, add scoped, and add transient? Before we show you, remember to subscribe to the channel and hit a like for the video. And tell us in the YouTube comments how you use dependency injection. Now let's find out what the singleton lifetime is. Singleton service lifetime instances will have a single instance for the lifetime of the application. These instances can be shared across multiple users of the same application. Storing cache data or configuration values are good examples for this. A scope service lifetime can have multiple instances in the same application. In ASP.NET Core, a scope is created once per HTTP request. Scope service lifetime instances are good if you want to share the same instance across multiple areas of a request, such as Entity Framework's DB context. You can also define custom scopes, which is useful for background tasks and multithreading. Every time a transient service lifetime is injected, it will create a new instance. This is ideal for services that are lightweight, stateless, and don't need to be shared. Examples of this include performing calculations or formatting a message. Now there are two ways to register a class as a service in dependency injection. The first way is just to have a standalone class where the class becomes a service. The other way is to have a class that implements an interface. In this instance, the interface becomes the service and the class becomes the implementation. Now we recommend that you do it this way because it's better for consumers that don't know the exact implementation. It can be used with mock-in in unit tests, and it can also be used for multiple implementations of the same service. To register a standalone class in dependency injection, you either call the add singleton, the add scoped, or the add transient extension methods, and you just specify the class name as the service type. Whereas if you're including an interface, you specify the interface as the service and the class as the implementation. And you can do that with the singleton, the scoped, and the transient. You can also call the try add extension methods. So you simply add try to each of these, and the difference being is that if any of these services are already registered in dependency injection, it won't try to add them again. You can also do the same as well if you're adding an implementation to it. So we'll add it for the singleton, the scoped, and the transient. There are a number of different overloads for the add extension methods. Here we're specifying the type as the parameter. Now the disadvantage with this is if we make a mistake, we won't know about any exceptions until the application is run. So we can demonstrate this by changing this to a product scope service. It compiles fine. It's only when we run the application where we get the exception. The alternative is to use the generic type extension methods where you specify the type as the generic type. So with this here, we specified the service as the generic type for the service, and then we've got the service and the implementation here. So if we were to change this to product scope service, we get the exception. There are also extension method overloads where you add your own initialization of the implementation. So for this, it expects a func. This is the iService provider. We don't need it for this. We're just returning a new instance of the category singleton service. But if we go into the category scope service, it expects an instance of the category singleton service. So for this, we can pass in the service provider as one of the parameters in the func. And then we call the getRequired service. And then that gets it from dependency injection and calls the category singleton service. And it's a similar story if you're using interfaces. So for this, we don't need it, so we're just passing in a new instance of the product singleton service. But down here, when we're registering the iProduct scope service, we pass in the service provider as the parameter, If we have a look at the product scope service, we require an instance of the product Singleton service. So we just get the service provider, we get the required service, and this gets the iProduct Singleton service from dependency injection. You can download the code example for this tutorial by going to roundthecode.com/examples. There's also a link for it in the YouTube video description. So we've shown you how to add the different service lifetimes in ASP.NET Core, but how does each one work? For each service lifetime, we've got a separate class which has a UTC time set as a property. This gets stored when the class is initialized. So we do that for the Singleton, we also do it for the Scoped as well, and we also do it for the Transient. In this Web API controller, we're passing each of the instances in as parameters, and we've set up this endpoint. So this service lifetimes endpoint, it will go through and output the time in the Singleton service, the time in the Scoped, and it will also do the same in the Transient. This is where we can find out how each one behaves. When we run the Web API endpoint, it outputs the times for the Singleton, Scoped, and Transient as to when they were initialized. If we were to run it again, the Singleton stays exactly the same because it has a single instance for the lifetime of the application, whereas the Scope changes because it's a part of a different HTTP request, and the Transient changes as well because every time a Transient service is injected, it creates a new instance for it. Transient service lifetime instances will be different when shared across multiple areas of the same request. In the next example, we'll show you the differences in a Transient service lifetime instance when it's injected into an MVC controller and then the same one into a Razor view. In this MVC endpoint, we're returning a model and it's outputting each of the UTC times for each of the service lifetimes. If we go into the Razor view, we're injecting each of those services again into the Razor view. And then we're outputting the response from the controller, which we get from the model, and then the response that we get from the injection in the Razor view. Let's see what happens with the different results. For the Singleton, the time for the controller and the view are the same, which means it's sharing the same instance. We'd expect that because it's a single instance for the lifetime of the application. For the Scoped, it's also the same time because it's sharing the same HTTP request, therefore it's sharing the same instance. But it's different for the Transient. The controller has a slightly earlier time than the view, and that's because the view is injecting a new instance of that Transient service lifetime. So that's the different service lifetimes that are available with ASP.NET Core Dependency Injection. And if you want to know how to use dependency injection in other areas like minimal APIs, watch this video next. And you can download the code example for this tutorial by going to roundthecode.com/examples. There's also a link for it in the YouTube video description. Leave any comments that you have about service lifetimes, and I'll see you on the next video.